Hello children, we are discussing chapter 6, Combustion and Flame. In our previous video, we had discussed certain introduction about this chapter. First, we had discussed what is combustion. What is combustion, bache? The process in which a substance burns in the presence of oxygen to produce heat and light energy is known as combustion. Combustion एक ऐसी प्रोसेस है बच्चे जिसमें एक सब्सटेंस बर्न होता है in the presence of oxygen to produce heat and light energy. In that which there is a certain point to be noted down that light may or may not be produced, but usually combustion produce energy. Then we have discussed the substances, the differentiation of various substances on the basis of combustion, whether they undergoes combustion, whether they burn or not. So substances are of two kinds, bache. One is combustible substances, the substances which undergoes burning, which produce heat and light energy when comes in contact with oxygen. Those are known as combustible substances. Whereas the substances which do not burn, which do not undergoes combustion to produce heat and light energy are known as non-combustible substances. The substances like paper, wooden stick, dry leaves, cloth, they are combustible. LPG, CNG, these are the fuels. Diesel, petrol, kerosene oil, all these are combustible substances. They burn to produce heat and light energy. Whereas there are certain examples of substances like steel spoon, iron stick, iron nail, stones, concrete, soil. They are non-combustible substances. They do not undergo combustion or burning in the presence of oxygen to produce heat and light energy. Next, we have discussed, bache, in our previous video, what are the types of combustion. There are in total 3 types of combustion are there, bache. One, rapid combustion. The form, the type of combustion, the type of burning in which a substance burns with oxygen very quickly to produce a large amount of heat energy. For example, burning of wax, candle wax, burning of petrol, burning of diesel. That's the example of rapid combustion. Burning of LPG. These substances catches fire very, very quickly, bache, and burns very easily to produce heat energy. Second was spontaneous combustion. The combustion, the burning in which the substance catches fire, the substance burns in the presence of oxygen to produce heat and light energy on its own without the use of any external heat. जब बच्चे बाहर की हीट यूज किए बिना एक सब्सटेंस जल पड़ता है अपने आप, that is known as spontaneous combustion. उसे हम क्या बोलते हैं बच्चे? Spontaneous combustion बोलते हैं, जिसमें एक सब्सटेंस अपने आप बर्न हो गया है. For example, the forest fires, the fire in the coal mines, these are spontaneous combustion. They develop on their own due to certain friction, due to certain rubbing, or due to the heat of earth. The substances burn on their own, and that fire keep on going for several days in some cases. So that is spontaneous combustion. The third one is the explosive combustion. The type of combustion in which a substance burns in the presence of oxygen to produce heat, light, and sound energy. In this, sound energy is an additional energy, an additional form of energy. The burning of firecrackers at Diwali or Dussehra is the example of this explosive combustion. In this, explosion occurs. In this, the substances when burned produce various kind of sounds. So that is the topics which we are discussing. The topic which we are discussing now is the conditions necessary for combustion. There are in total 3 conditions necessary for combustion, bache. The first one is a combustible substance. To burn, we need a substance which undergo combustion, bache. For example, paper, cloth, LPG, diesel. If we take stone, if we take iron, that doesn't undergo combustion very easily. So they are non-combustible substances. So for burning, first thing we require is a combustible substance. These three things together make up a fire triangle. The first one is combustible substance. Second is supporter of combustion, that is oxygen. We'll discuss an activity, bache, before moving ahead. The activity that shows us that oxygen is required for combustion. In the absence of oxygen, no combustion or no burning will take place. So first we'll discuss that activity, then we'll discuss the third point, to show that oxygen is necessary for combustion of a substance. For that we require a candle, bache. To burn that candle, a matchstick, a glass tumbler and a plate. What we have to do is, in first case, burn the candle by the help of matchstick. So that's a burning candle, beta. That's a plate if you want to label the whole diagram. This is glass tumbler. This one is flame. Lighted candle produce obviously a flame, bache. The oxygen is available in the environment, but there is no substance placed over that candle. So that substance burns very quickly and produces flame. In the second one, what we do is, glass tumbler is placed over candle in inverted position. हमने क्या किया, उसको inverted condition में उसके ऊपर रख दिया. The precaution we must have to take is that base does not touch the candle. ये base touch नहीं करना चाहिए, बेटा gap होना चाहिए थोड़ा सा. We'll observe that after burning for few seconds, the candle, deflamed. The candle will not produce any flame after some time. Candle जो है बच्चे, वो बुझ जाएगी. There is no flame. Why? बच्चे, when we place the tumbler over it, it has air in it. No air coming outside from atmosphere into this tumbler. कोई air atmosphere से यहाँ नहीं जा रही है बेटा. The inner air has a small amount of oxygen. जो अंदर air है, it has small amount of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen, when it burns, that oxygen will be finished. एक point पर बच्चे ये oxygen क्या हो जाएगी? Finish हो जाएगी. तो बच्चे जब ऑक्सीजन अवेलेबल नहीं होगी तो हम देखेंगे इसकी जो बर्निंग है और बर्निंग से जो फ्लेम प्रोड्यूस हो रही है, that will be disappear. So this activity prove that oxygen is required for combustion. क्या है बच्चे इस एक्टिविटी में? हमने कैंडल बर्न की, उसके ऊपर एक इन्वर्टेड ग्लास टम्बलर रख दिया. The oxygen which is present in the glass tumbler is used for the burning. After the finishing of oxygen, after the complete use of oxygen of the glass tumbler, when oxygen is unavailable, the candle does not burn, henceforth does not produce any flame. Candle बच्चे जब जलेगी नहीं तो कोई flame produce नहीं होगी. So conclusion of this activity is, oxygen is required, is necessary for combustion of any combustible substance. Without or in the absence of oxygen, a substance does not burn. And the third condition which we are going to discuss is attainment of ignition temperature of the combustible substance. Now the question arises, what is ignition temperature? Every substance requires a minimum temperature to catch fire. If that minimum temperature is not achieved, then that substance does not catch fire, but it does not undergo burning. So that temperature is known as ignition temperature. That temperature must be attained by a combustible substance for burning. So these are the three conditions for burning or combustion of a substance. Third condition for the combustion is attainment of ignition temperature. First we'll discuss what is ignition temperature. The minimum temperature at which a substance catches fire is known as ignition temperature. You must have seen coal and wood to burn. They do not catch the fire immediately. We must have to place that flame nearby them for some time, and then only coal and wood catches fire. The reason is the attainment of their ignition temperature. every substance has its own ignition temperature. Some has lower and some has higher. Some catches fire at very low temperatures and some will catch the fire at quite a bit higher temperatures. So that depends on each individual substance which is undergoes combustion. So what is ignition temperature? The lowest temperature to which a substance must be heated. वो सबसे कम टेम्परेचर बच्चे जहां तक एक सब्सटेंस को हीट किया जाना चाहिए so that it can catch fire and start burning. That temperature is known as ignition temperature. The minimum temperature at which a substance catches fire is known as ignition temperature, or you can say in detail that the lowest temperature up to which a substance must be heated so that that substance can catch fire and starts burning. That minimum temperature, that lowest temperature is known as ignition temperature. Now we'll discuss an activity that at a proper ignition temperature only a substance will burn. If we lower it down, if that substance does not reaches to its ignition temperature, then that substance does not burn. So the activity says that to show that a combustible substance does not catch fire if its temperature is lower than its usual ignition temperature. In this activity, what you have to do is a very simple activity. You have to take a paper cup. First, fill that paper cup with water and place it over the flame. And in the second case, empty paper cup is placed over the flame. पहले क्या करना बच्चे, पेपर कप लेना है, fill that paper cup with water and then place it over the flame. In second case, remove the water from it and make it dry and then place it over the flame. You will observe that in this case the paper cup starts to burn very easily. इसमें हम देखेंगे पेपर के जलना शुरू हो जाएगा. But in the first case, in which the water is placed in that cup, it does not burn. Why is it so? Because when we are providing this heat, this boundary of the paper cup is transmitting that heat to the water. बच्चे जब हम इसे हीट करेंगे ना बेटा, तो इसके अंदर जो पानी है वो उस हीट को एब्जॉर्ब करता जाएगा by the method of conduction. In your previous class, you must have observed, must have read about the conduction. Conduction is when the heat is transferred from a body at higher temperature to another body or another part of the body at lower temperature. जब बच्चे higher temperature से heat transfer होगी lower temperature की तरफ, that is known as conduction. So in this case, due to conduction, the water will absorb the heat energy from the paper cup. So that's why paper cup will never reaches to its ignition temperature. अब बच्चे वो तो अपनी हीट अपने पास रख ही नहीं पा रहा. It keep on conducting the heat, it keep on transmitting the heat, transferring the heat to the water. So due to which the paper cup will not able to reach up to its ignition temperature, up to its minimum temperature at which it catches fire. So in first case, the paper cup does not burn, whereas this will burn very easily. So now there are certain questions related to this. First is, why petrol burns quickly or easily than kerosene? Because the ignition temperature of petrol is less as compared to kerosene oil. Why a single piece of paper when roll over a candle flame will catches fire, but when we passes a complete book from there, complete notebook from there, it does not burn. बच्चे अगर आप एक सिंगल पेपर को कैंडल फ्लेम के ऊपर से पास करेंगे वो फायर कैच कर लेगी, बट अगर आप उसी पेपर की बनी एक बुक को पास करेंगे तो वो फायर कैच नहीं करेगी. व्हाई? अटेनमेंट ऑफ इग्निशन टेम्परेचर इज नॉट देयर. A matchsticks can burn the shrivels of wood. Shrivels means बच्चे wood का बिल्कुल बारीक बारीक हमने pieces कर लिए जैसे हम pencil sharp करते हैं, like that. That will be easily burned by matchstick. But a complete wood, a log of wood cannot be able to burn, cannot be able to catch fire by a matchstick. Why? Because that large volume of log of wood cannot be able to attain its ignition temperature by that matchstick. So there are three conditions required to burn a substance. First one is a combustible substance must be there. Second one is the supporter of combustion, that is oxygen, must be there. Oxygen availability should be there. And the third one is ignition temperature. The lowest temperature, the minimum temperature at which a substance catches fire is known as ignition temperature. So these are the three conditions which makes up a fire triangle. Now we'll discuss inflammable substances. We have discussed ignition temperature, and some substances have low ignition temperatures and some have high. Some require very less temperature to catch fire, and some require very high temperature, a large amount of heat to get fire, to catch fire. So on this basis, substances are of two types, inflammable and non-inflammable. The substances which have very low ignition temperature and catch fire very easily with a flame, those are known as inflammable substances. In Hindi they are referred as ज्वलनशील. Hindi में ज्वलनशील बोलते हैं बच्चे. The substances which catches fire very easily at very low temperatures are known as inflammable substances. You must have seen the petrol tanks and the diesel tanks, LPG tanks, बच्चे. There is word written in very prominent letters, inflammable. Keep away from it. Why? Because they are highly inflammable, beta. They will catch the fire at very low temperatures. So they are referred as inflammable substances. LPG, CNG, diesel, petrol, all these are inflammable substances. After that, we will discuss firefighting. You must have heard, bache, that the building, A building, B building catch fire due to short circuiting. There's a large fire occurs in that old forest. So bache, to stop, to control and to extinguish the unwanted fires, we have a phenomenon named as a firefighting. And the people, the person who are doing this job are known as firefighters. Firefighting means to control and extinguish the fire. To control and extinguish the unwanted fire at a place is known as firefighting. Basically, bache, there is a fire triangle in which three things are there. The first one, combustible substance. Second one, oxygen. And third one, the ignition temperature. And out of these three, if we remove one, the fire will be extinguished. अगर बच्चे इन तीन चीजों में से फायर ट्रायंगल की एक चीज रिमूव कर दें तो फायर नहीं लगेगी, फायर बच जाएगी बच्चे. Now, there is one more problem is there. If a large substance catches a fire, if a large area have that fire, then it is impossible, literally impossible to remove the combustible substance. अगर एक बहुत बड़ी जगह पर आग लग गई है बच्चे तो combustible substance को हटा पाना तो possible है ही नहीं. So for that, firefighting will work majorly on two principles. The first one is bringing down the ignition temperature of that substance, temperature of that substance to that particular ignition temperature. हम क्या करें बच्चे, उसका टेम्परेचर ही लो कर दें. So bringing down the temperature of that body lower than the ignition temperature, so that that substance will never catch fire. That is done by putting water over it. अगर हम substance को गीला कर देते हैं बच्चे, if a substance is wet, then it does not catch fire very easily. Why? Because its ignition temperature rises, बेटा. उसका ignition temperature बढ़ गया है. Next, cutting off the air supply. Stop the oxygen supply to that particular substance, and in the absence of oxygen, that substance does not catch fire. और अगर बच्चे एयर सप्लाई नहीं होगी तो वो सब्सटेंस फायर कैच नहीं करेगा. First is, if we bring down the temperature lower than the initial temperature, if we bring down the temperature of the substance lower than its ignition temperature. Actually, the right line which was written is incorrect. Ignition temperature कम नहीं करना है, टेम्परेचर बॉडी का कम करना है ignition temperature से, ताकि वो ignition temperature तक बॉडी जाए ही नहीं, और जाएगी नहीं तो फायर कैच करेगी. Why? Because ignition temperature is the minimum temperature at which a substance catches fire. Actually, the initial line was bringing down the ignition temperature. That is incorrect. Bringing down the temperature of the substance below its ignition temperature. That is the correct line. That must be the correct line. So, by lowering down the temperature, that is usual ignition temperature, and the second one is by cutting the air supply, we can achieve the firefighting. We can stop the fire.